Okay, guys, so I wanted to talk about something that I kind of had not so much an epiphany, but just a new direction I want to go with some of my gaming painting stuff. So, something I've always had an issue with. I like miniatures. I don't like paper figures because I figure I want a miniature, I want something sturdy. But the problem is that when you're getting them all painted up and everything, you have a choice on the base. Do you want to just leave it black, or do you want to like spruce it up? And a lot of people spruce it up like this one, where they cover the whole base with scenic stuff. And the problem is that on this figure it's not as bad, because the figure itself stands out because of the coloration. But the bases can be kind of overwhelming. They can really draw your attention away from the figure. And I've seen some pictures online of people that just put a ton of work into their bases. And there's one that popped up in my Facebook feed from a Battletech group. It's got a battle mech on it, and the mech looks great, but they put these crystals on the base and then did object source lighting. And it makes the mech look kind of drab because you've got these crystals, and the object source lighting on them just kind of takes away from the mech itself. And I find that can be a real big problem, and it always bugs me when I'm doing figures of how to make the bases look nice but not make them take away from the figure. And it also kind of bugs me a bit because I've seen people go to acrylic bases and just leave them just straight acrylic see-through. That's great, but those are like god awful expensive. And even then, it's kind of just so-so. It doesn't really... It just looks like taking the cheap, easy way out. It doesn't really add anything. But doing something like this, the base doesn't really take away from the figure, but it kind of makes it stand out a lot more if it's put on a surface like this. Has a cobblestone type appearance. If it's in the middle of a forest, the base is going to stand out even worse. So I wanted something that could kind of convey a sprucing up of the base to make it look nice but wouldn't take away from the figure. And what I've come up with is I wanted to do something. Let me show you. I have a beholder hive, for those of you that haven't looked at my Etsy shop. And by the way, I'm not really interested in selling it. I just put it in the Etsy shop to bring viewers. But I have a beholder hive. And I do these beholders. I'm not going to be doing any for quite a while because we need to move out of here. This place is just becoming untenable with the gang members and all the other stuff going on at our apartment complex. But I came up with this idea when I was doing them of doing a more artsy base, because I was thinking to some of the illustrations that I've seen in the Dungeons & Dragons monster manuals, where the illustration has the figure and just a tiny little bit of scenery under it, to suggest that it's actually not just an illustration on a page, that it's a illustration from something that they saw of the creature. So I went ahead and started doing this. I've got the base, it's been primed black. I went ahead and did some decorations on it and left a lot of the base black, so it's little spurts of scenery, and it adds a nice detail to the figure. It puts it in its terrain. Doesn't take away from the figure, but it adds just enough. Sorry, I have an avalanche going on here on my projects table. Let me get these out of the way. Here's another figure that I've done with it. Tighten it up a bit. Again, black base, added in just enough scenery around it. Widen it out a bit. So when I put this on a table, it's going to look nice. And when I did when I've done the hive this way, it adds a nice accent. And if you're doing something where you want mass stuff on it, because I'm doing a hive and I needed a bunch of them, What I did was, to simplify things, I went ahead and bought a bunch of flight stand bases from an online retailer. I can't remember the name of the shop, but I just bought a ton of these bases. And I went ahead and, because originally I was going to do all the little rocks and everything individually, but doing that for a large number of figures wasn't going to work. So like I said, I bought the flight stands, bought some washers, used green stuff to make a master set, and then I cast it. So this gives me 10 different potential bases, and then I just add scenic sand around them to make it so that all of them are different. None of them are going to be exactly identical. Add a few little rocks here and there, but I ended up with this. And then from there I just cast a ton of them. And when I go ahead and I put them on the base, this is one of the big bases for one of the super large beholders. Let me pull out another smaller one. But all the places that aren't covered by scenic sand or the resin are going to be black. And it's got the 1/8 inch hole. I use 1/8 inch acrylic rod when I do these. It gives me a really nice clear flight stand for it. But this is what I did to kind of artsy up my bases. And I painted up a Battletech army, but I ended up having to sell it because when they did the Kickstarter, it was apparent that I wasn't going to be able to do that many mechs in that paint scheme, because with my neck issues, it gave me a headache and screwed up the nerves in my right arm for a while until I was able to get it adjusted away. So I had to come up with a simpler paint scheme, so I'm having to restart the army over again from scratch. But when I do those, they will all again have that type of artsy base where I leave a lot of the base black and just put in little rocks and scenic sand here and there to give that impression that it's something, an illustration out of a book. When I did the army, it looked really sharp. When I do the new army, it's going to look just as sharp. But I'm doing this for all of my figures now. And since I cast those, I have this big bucket of spare bases. So as I go through, I can just continue churning these out. These ones have all been washed and array just be slapped on a base and painted up. By the way, I'll be putting some of these, since I have the master set, I can always recast another lot. I'm not going to have a chance to get back to my beholder hive anytime immediately soon. So most of these will probably end up in my Etsy shop, just to try and clear some space before we have to do the move. Because we have got to get out of here, and I need to get a bunch of this stuff put into storage. But I just wanted to talk about that idea that less is more, and the idea of doing a more artistic base so that you don't have just that little slice of the base. It looks more integrated and adds more to accentuate the figure, is just helping buff the figure up a bit and not detracting from it. That's all, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.